LETTER the 49th of Life in Mexico. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Life in Mexico by Francis Calderon de la Barca. Letter the 49th. Live Trojes, beautiful territory. Tarascan Indians. Taximaurua, distressed condition. An improvement. Cold morning. Querindaro, fine breed of horses. San Bartolo, produce. Country proprietors. Collier, ride to Morelia. Wild ducks. Sunset. Cathedral bell. Quincho, Curates Morelos. Mantamoros and Hidalgo. Warm baths. Handsome girls. Starving travelers. Lost mules. Lancers. Night on a heap of straw. Mules found. Tzinzontzan. King Calonce, Pascuaro. Kind reception. Bishop. Robbers. Curu. Night in a barn. Mountain. Uruapa. Enchanting scenery. Pleasant family. Jorullo. Valladolid. 25th. As the house was so agreeable, and our next day's journey short, we could not prevail upon ourselves to leave the Trojes before 9 o'clock, and even then, with the hopes of spending some time there on our return, to see the mining establishment, the mills for grinding ore, the horizontal water wheels, etc., etc., and still more, the beautiful scenery in the neighbourhood. That you may understand our line of march, take a map of Mexico, and you will see that Michoacán, one of the most beautiful and fertile territories in the world, is bounded on the north by the river Lerma, afterwards known by the name of Rio Grande, also by the department of Guanajuato; to the east and northeast it bounds that of Mexico, and to the west that of Guadalajara. It lies on the western slope of the great Cordillera of Anahuac. Hills, woods, and beautiful valleys diversify its surface; its pasture grounds are watered by numerous streams, that rare advantage under the torrid zone, and the climate is cool and healthy. The Indians of this department are the Terascos, the Otomi, and the Chichimeca Indians. The first are the most civilized of the tribes, and their language the most harmonious. We are now travelling in a northwesterly direction towards the capital of the state, Valladolid, or Morelia, as it has been called since the independence, in honour of the curate Morelos, its great supporter. We had a pleasant ride of 9 leagues through an open pasture country, meeting with nothing very remarkable on our journey, but an Indian woman seated on the ground, her Indian husband standing beside her. Both had probably been refreshing themselves with pulque, perhaps even with its homeopathic extract, mezcal, but the Indian was sober and sad, and stood with his arms folded and the most patient and pitying face, while his wife, quite overcome with the strength of the potation and unable to go any further, looked up at him with the most imploring air, saying repeatedly, "Mátame, Miguel, mátame!" (Kill me, Miguel, kill me!), apparently considering herself quite unfit to live. About 5 o'clock we came in sight of the pretty village and old church of Taximaroa, and riding up to the maison, or inn, found 2 empty dark rooms with mud floors, without windows, in fact without anything but their 4 walls, neither bench, chair, nor table. Although we travel with our own beds, this looked rather uninviting, especially after the pleasant quarters we had just left, and we turned our eyes wistfully towards a pretty small house upon a hill, with a painted portico, thinking how agreeably situated we should be there. Colonel Y thereupon rode up the hill, and presenting himself to the owner of this house, described our forlorn prospects, and he kindly consented to permit us all to sup there, and moreover to receive the ladies for the night. For the gentleman he had no room, having but 1 spare apartment, as one of his family was a great invalid, and could not be moved. Accordingly our travelling luggage was carried up the hill, the horses and mules and servants were quartered in the village, the gentlemen found lodging for themselves in a bachelor's house, and we found ourselves in very agreeable quarters, on a pretty piazza, with an extensive view, and one large room containing a table and some benches at our service. Meanwhile M. de rushed through the village, finding eggs and hens and tortillas, and then returning, he and Mr. W. produced the travelling stores of beef and tongue, and set about making mustard and drawing bottles of wine, to the great wonderment and edification of the honest proprietor. Even a clean tablecloth was produced, a piece of furniture which he had probably never seen before, and now eyed wistfully, doubtless taking it for a sheet. We had a most amusing supper, some performing dexterously with penknives, and others using tortillas as forks. We won the heart of the bourgeois by sending a cup of tea to his invalid, and inviting him to partake of another, which he seemed to consider a rare and medicinal beverage. About 9 o'clock the gentlemen departed to their lodgings, and our beds were erected in the large room where we had supped, the man assuring us that he was quite pleased to have us under his roof, and liked our company extremely well, adding, "Me cuadra mucho la gente decente." I am very fond of decent people. We left Taximaroa at 6 o'clock, having spent rather a disturbed night, in consequence of the hollow coughs with which the whole family seemed afflicted, at least the poor invalid on one side of our room, and the master of the house on the other. The morning was so cold that every manga and sarape was put in requisition. Our ride this day was through superb scenery, every variety of hill and valley, water and wood, particularly the most beautiful woods of lofty oaks, the whole with scarcely a trace of cultivation, and for the most part entirely uninhabited. Our numbers were augmented by Colonel Y.'s troop, who rode from Morelia to meet him. We had a long journey, passed by the little village of San Andrés, and stopped to eat tortillas in a very dirty hut at Puebla Viejo, surrounded by the dirtiest little Indian children. Throughout the whole ride, the trees and flowering shrubs were beautiful, and the scenery so varied, that although we rode for 11 hours in a hot sun, we scarcely felt fatigued, for wherever there are trees and water and fresh green grass, the eye is rested. In this and in our last few days' journey, we saw a number of blue birds, called by the common people guardia bosques, wood guardians. About 5:30 we entered a winding road through a natural shrubbery, leading to Querendaro, the fine hacienda of Señor Pimentel, a senator. When we arrived, the family were at dinner, and we were invited to join them, after which we went out to see the hacienda, and especially the handsome and well kept stables, where the proprietor has a famous breed of horses, some of which were trotted out for our inspection, beautiful spirited creatures, one called Hilo de Oro, golden thread, another Pico Blanco, white mouth, etc. In the inner courtyard are many beautiful and rare flowers, and everything is kept in great order. At 9 o'clock the following morning we left Querendaro, and rode on to San Bartolo, a vast and beautiful property belonging to Señor Don Joaquin Gomez of Valladolid. The family were from home, with the exception of his son and nephew, who did the honours of the house with such cordial and genuine hospitality, that we felt perfectly at home before the day was over. I think the Mexican character is never seen to such advantage as in the country, amongst these great landed proprietors of old family, who live on their own estates, engaged in agricultural pursuits, and entirely removed from all the party feeling and petty interests of a city life. It is true that the life of a country gentleman here is that of a hermit, in the total absence of all society, in the nearly unbroken solitude that surrounds him. For leagues and leagues there is no habitation but his own; the nearest miserable village may be distant half a day's journey, over an almost impassable road. He is monarch of all his surveys, a king amongst his farm servants and Indian workmen. Nothing can exceed the independence of his position, but to enjoy this wild country life he must be born to it. He must be a first-rate horseman, and addicted to all kinds of country sport; and if he can spend the day in riding over his estate, in directing his workmen, watching over his improvements, redressing disputes and grievances, and can sit down in the evening in his large and lonely halls, and philosophically bury himself in the pages of some favourite author.